So I'm going to read this article here, and we'll get back into that. I'm going to read this article here, and this is where it talks about the stepmom discuss the frickin' pop-ups.
Oh, the stepmother, yes. Oh.
Yeah, surviving roommate in University of Idaho massacre experiencing survivor's guilt and switched schools, according to the stepmom. So here's the link to this. And of course, it's always for the trolls too, because I like sharing the links with the trolls as well. Well, you have there's people from other shows that come here to get content. Like I don't know that, but hey, it's about community. You know what I mean? I don't mind sharing. All right, so. Surviving roommate in University of Idaho massacre experiencing survivor's guilt and switched schools. New York Post. A year after the massacre of 4 University of Idaho students, the roommate who came face to face with the cold-blooded unaliver but was spared has transferred colleges and is struggling with survivor's guilt. Her stepmother told the Post in her first public comments. Patricia Monroe said Dylan Mortensen is doing okay since BK allegedly, oh my gosh, unalived the victims at 1112 King Road. There's a lot of guilt because, if someone says, oh well, Dylan was so lucky, you don't want to take on that luck. Because all of the children deserved luck. They all deserve to be spared from that, said Monroe, 53, of Costa Mesa, California. Sorry if I mispronounced that wrong. Monroe, who was married to Mortensen.
It's actually Costa Mesa, and it's right by my house. It's one of the cities close to my house. Interesting.
Okay, Costa Mesa. Monroe, who was married to Mortensen's father, Brent Mortensen, helped raise Dylan from the time she was 7 years old, almost up until her graduation from high school. She and Brent Mortensen have since gotten divorced, but she insists she is still very aware of the situation and what Mortensen's doing and how she's doing. She said, it's interesting, you got all these people that aren't, they're exes or old high school buddies. Oh, geez. Taking this with a grain of salt, too.
Right? Yeah. Yeah,
oh my gosh. It's just too much. It comes from everywhere. Dylan's stepmom said the 20-year-old transferred universities this year, but declined to say which one, of course. And we don't care to find out because it's none of our business. Please don't put it in chat if you know. We don't need to know. None of our business. Dylan came face to face with the alleged unaliver as he exited the house, standing in a frozen shock phase as a figure clad in black clothing and mask walked towards her, then towards the back sliding glass door of the house. A police affidavit stated she then locked herself in her room for the night. For reasons still unknown, she and Bethany Funk, the other roommate who survived the attack, didn't call the police until around noon the following day, according to Idaho investigators. This is just one fact that social media trolls and citizen sleuths have latched onto in slamming Mortensen and Funk since the case gained worldwide attention last year. 8 hours is a long time for anybody, sorry, reporter. They've called her everything from an unaliver and a substance dealer to transgender. See, that's why you need to, this is why I'm saying I don't talk about a lot of shit that's even right there. You need more evidence, man. You know?
Oh yeah, that
Yeah,
whole thing about her. I mean,
that's
you
why
know,
we don't even, no.
that's not something.
Not saying it's not it or it can't be possible, but it's about respect, number one, before anything. Not about clicks and views. You never really think about the online backlash and trolls until you deal with it, and it's just a really hurtful thing, Monroe said. I challenge anyone to be in a position where they wake up to 4 of their roommates gone and not even realizing it. She continued, people have to understand that these children are very young, they're just young kids, and it's really a traumatizing thing. I just think that people need to have compassion. There needs to be a space and time for all the details to come out in trial, said Monroe. So this one, and here's the link to this. Another New York, these are all New York Post articles, by the way. This one is Brian Koberger's defense is going to jump on surviving Idaho roommate Dylan Mortensen at trial, per expert. Drink a coffee. It says, the University of Idaho student who survived the grisly quadruple homicide that captured the nation's attention last year should prepare to be, quote, jumped on by suspect Brian Koberger's defense when she testifies, a trial expert told the Post. Dylan Mortensen survived the November 13th, 2022 crime that left Madison Mogan, Kaylee Consalvis, Xana Kernodle, and her boyfriend Ethan Chapin passed away. She came face to face with the unaliver just moments after the crime, telling authorities, excuse me, she saw a figure clad in black clothing and a mask walking towards the home back exit just after 4 a.m. It also stated that it covered the mouth and nose. Another roommate, Bethany Funk, also survived the crime. The Court TV executive producer Ted Rowlands told the Post he believes Mortensen's testimony will be the central to the trial, which kicks off later this month, of course, because it's the one in the PCA. Why wouldn't it? Right? I think Dylan is going to be big because the defense is going to, quote, jump on her. Rowlands, 57, said Friday if she was so scared and she locked her door and stayed in the room and was frozen like she told investigators, then why didn't someone call 911 for 12 hours should be pivotal. Exactly. When it comes to frozen shock phase,
Yeah.
if you get into frozen shock phase, that means you saw something that put you in that phase, which means if you saw something that put you in frozen shock phase, wouldn't that mean you should probably call 911?
Yeah.
Because if you walk out and you see spaghetti sauce and noodles spilled out on the carpet, you're not going into a frozen shock phase, right? I'm talking about real spaghetti.
Yeah,
I'm not using code word. You're not getting into a frozen shock phase. If it's other stuff that's similar, yeah, you're getting into it. So then when if you're in a frozen shock phase, that's probably a reason that you need to call 911, right?
Well, and the frozen shock phase, I mean, it's a phase. It's at some point it's going to go away. I mean, it's a period of time. So if it seems 8 hours is not a phase. Somebody can be in a frozen shock. I don't even know what that means exactly.
At work. 8 hours is a shift at work.
Right?
That's what it is.
Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't. And the frozen shock phase, it doesn't sound like, it sounds like something that was conjured up in my opinion. I mean, I don't know, but I don't think there's anything clinical about a frozen shock phase or anything like.
Yeah, there's no like time limit. Yeah. After 56 minutes and 32 seconds, the frozen shock phase starts to dissipate. You know, there's no medical record of from 42 minutes to 57 minutes. It's just
the frozen shock phase lasts for
off.
5 hours, and then
unless smelling salt is applied, and then it drastically gets reduced. I mean, who knows? Who knows? Right?
I don't know. I mean, there's people being in shock. Yeah, people can get into shock.
Well, of course.
They could have said she would. They could have wrote that she was in shock. Okay, but when they say the frozen shock, it's like they're trying to say she was frozen. That's why she couldn't call. How about just that she was in shock and couldn't call?
To explain the delay.
I mean, it's like frozen shock. Does that mean she was frozen to death? And I mean, she was freezing.
It has to be thawed. Yeah, it takes time to thaw. You know, you can't take corn out of the freezer and expect to throw it in the pot and boil it. You gotta let it thaw a little bit. Just like pork chops or anything. You can't just take it out of the freezer and start cooking it. You gotta thaw it a little bit. So it's the same thing. Like the frozen is it adds a category for there to be time extended on, so that way because they have to have the same excuse too. I mean, there was a vandal. You have 911 being called, but yet the other officers ain't showing up until 4 or 5. Then the coroner's not showing up till 5:30.
Yeah, and
there's gaps there too.
It just the frozen.
Why all the gaps?
Frozen shock phase just sounds strange to me, but I don't know. Could be.
Well, I mean, it is got to be traumatic. You know what I'm saying? This is what. So, what's frozen shock? Because according to you heard somebody playing with the dog, then you heard somebody say, "I think somebody's here," then you heard a cry or a whimper, and somebody say, "I'm here to help. It's okay, I'm here to help." I could see you getting frozen shock phase when you open the door and the person that you hadn't seen the other times that you opened the door all of a sudden is walking in front of your face, and you're like, holy shit. Of course you're going to be in frozen shock phase. But for that long, that's why I don't.
And I'm looking it up right now. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Especially what? Oh, I'm looking it up. I'm looking it up right now, and it has to do with adrenaline surge. So you can't have adrenaline for too long. I mean, adrenaline. If you can't be in
you can go to
adrenaline. Shock. Yeah. So
you can go to shock.
I don't understand it, but oh well, that's how they wrote it.
Yeah, so if she was in a frozen state for that long, she would have went into shock. She would have had to have medical assistance, and I'm sorry, if you don't have medical assistance when you go into shock, don't you have there's a lot of other medical things that are happening that you need help, right? Yeah. When you're in shock, you could literally die.
Well, yeah.
That's why you need, that's why they make sure that you don't get there.
Yeah, and maybe I have a hard time believing anything anymore. I just feel like that whole PCA is just I don't know.
Yeah.
I just it's just very bothersome.
It's the Christmas stocking with a bunch of crumpled up paper.
Yeah, what Kelly is saying, it's the freeze response is common trauma response, but it's the way that it's worded, and then it doesn't match up with the other it's sort of it seems like it just doesn't fit with what the scenario. I don't know.